Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Star in Focus podcast. I'm your host, Deanna Oakes, and today we have with us Josh Hoeppner, who is an illustrationist. I have created this word that I love. He is a graphic art design major and has created not one, but two companies that we are going to hear all about today. So why don't you introduce yourself for our viewers, Josh?
Hi, I'm Josh Hoeppner. I used to do graphic design more, but I probably do more trial presentation consulting at this point. I've started a couple companies. I also worked for a company and did the same for many years, and I guess we'll go
So
from
how
there.
did you go from, because I thought that your trial presentation, which I'm so happy we're having this discussion because I wanted to know, I thought your trial presentation was linked to your graphic design in that you were creating diagrams and things like that to present. So why don't you tell us how you went from graphic design, which I have a feeling you probably didn't see yourself in the courtroom when you got into that field.
Not at all. So I went to Columbus College of Art and Design here in Columbus, Ohio, where I'm located, and graduated with illustration degree actually for drawing and painting and that sort of stuff for books or whatnot, or whatever you might do as an illustrator. And then I fell into graphic design from there, and I was working for a graphic design company, and that graphic design company ended up, it was a really small outfit, and it kind of dwindled off. And my boss was actually his wife was an attorney, and she recommended me to somebody that was looking for somebody with more of a graphic design visual background, because he had hired people in the legal field to help with trial presentation and graphics
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. So he wanted somebody with more of a visual background, and then I showed him my work and kind of flew from there. And that was I've been doing this for almost
Oh,
20 years
wow.
now. Um, yeah, so I worked for what turned into Affinity Consulting, and I worked for them for 10 years, and then I've been on my own essentially for
Good for
10
you.
years.
That is amazing. And what's your new company called?
Tilt
Tilt
Litigation
Litigation
Services.
Services. And you, as a graphic design artist, I suppose, is that an accurate statement? Are you an artist? Yeah. I mean, I think so, right? That falls into that category. Um,
Yeah.
are you using your creativity in this realm? How is it translatable? I mean, are you drawing body parts? What
Yeah.
does that look like for you?
Not so much the drawing aspect, but definitely the creative aspect. Anytime I do trials, I help with anything from opening statement, witness demonstratives, where you have, graphics I might create, timelines, recreations of, building, structures. I mean, there's a lot of different things. I don't go to the level of like 3D, but my level is more just the to help simplify things for the jury. So a lot of times I might do a business case, for instance, and they come to me and hand me, the whole layout of what this trial is about, and it's super complex business litigation, where you have to, come. I try to come up with a visual way of kind of sharing that story through a simplified graphic or simplified set of graphics that help uh, juries understand the case. So I guess with me, in terms of doing this kind of work, the trial presentation work, it kind of gets twofold, right? They get me in the court. I'm actually in the courtroom as well, so I help them with presenting things, set up the courtroom with technology, monitors, whatever they need to actually present it, and then I also help them and are part of the team in coming up with, you know, sometimes even arguments, but mostly just trying to come up with ways to help the jury understand visually and more
That's
simply.
amazing. So it's like I'm imagining a storyboard. Is that kind of in the same vein?
Sort of. Yeah,
That's
exactly,
really
exactly. And the storyboard could be for the whole case, or the storyboard could be just to one specific important aspect of the case. So it really just depends on what we're getting into and what the attorney is thinking in terms of, where he wants to go with things. And then in the end, and as trials go through, I'll actually sit. I sit through the whole trial most of the time. So I'll sit and actually create graphics and create presentations for closing, or maybe even for the next witness if I have ideas. But I'll sit there and create slides and just shoot them off to the attorney while somebody's on the stand testifying about something. They may have said something that that could be a great closing argument slide, and I'll put it together while they're sitting there and shoot it off to the attorney and be like, hey, this might be good for closing or
That's
whatever. Sometimes they use it, sometimes they
right.
don't.
And I mean,
But
it's better to have it and not need it, right? Than the other way around. So that's
yeah,
awesome. It sounds like a lot
yeah.
of it is not even necessarily artwork, but maybe like pie charts and things like that. Is that kind of where you're going? Like, do you just create literally information into some sort of visual aspect, regardless of what it is?
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, I can go very complex. I mean, being from art, I have the ability to make something very complex. But most of the time, for attorneys, for law for or trials, they don't need something crazy complex to get a point
Right. They
across,
probably
right?
want the opposite, I would imagine. They
But
probably want it to be pretty simple so the jury can grasp onto it. Yeah?
exactly. But sometimes it comes in handy where you have like say like a photo for instance, and there's one section of the photo that might be really important and the rest of it might not be. Where I could actually take it into Photoshop. I'm not editing an image, obviously. It's evidence, but you can like have something like like cut it out and be like, here's the important part of the
Yeah.
picture. Have arrows coming in or circling
Yeah.
something, or just little things like that that can come up, and it's nice for me to have the ability to do that, right there on the spot, I
Absolutely. That
guess.
sounds like a real talent. I mean, I'm sure it's years of education and experience as well, but yeah, those are the things I feel like you see in the movies, where it's just the effects and then one piece of something comes out. That's awesome. So
Yeah, you see that a lot, like Dateline and stuff like that, where they have
yeah,
that kind of
have
stuff.
they ever come to you for like, has anything that was aired, nationally? Have you ever had any work be exposed that way?
No, I mean not in the because there's really I've never been in a trial where they've had cameras
Oh
in the
yeah.
courtroom. Um, so, but I have done some pretty high profile things that did develop quite a few graphics and that sort of stuff that was really pretty
It
interesting.
sounds awesome. It sounds like you said creative and just like a way to enhance these arguments because I personally am a very visual person. I think that just creates a different way of absorbing information and it's really helpful to have. So I imagine you're pretty valuable to the firms that you work with. And obviously, if this is your second company, you're doing pretty well. Do you find yourself now that we're in more of a virtual setting, just in constant need, or are you just overwhelmed with work at this point?
I, I'm busier than I've ever been. I think that's a few different reasons, but yeah, I'm definitely busier than I've ever been. I had probably, I don't really count the
Sure.
trials that I'm in, but uh, so I had 6 weeks. This year I had 6 weeks in a row where I was in trial every
Wow.
week. So six different trials in
Right.
6 weeks. So I think this year I've probably had somewhere in the range of 15
That's a lot.
trials. Um, you know, 15 to I don't even. I guess I don't count, but it is a lot. I'd say I've in my career somewhere in the range of 250 to 300,
Wow.
give or
Yeah.
take. So, and it's a lot. It's interesting. But with the Zoom stuff and things like that, I've also helped with actual Zoom depositions where I'm presenting documents, showing graphics while on a Zoom, which is being recorded, which then goes into the courtroom, which then I'm editing it for the courtroom, then presenting it back that way. So that's always interesting and using the technology we have. And yeah, and I think a lot of people, both sides now, really almost have to have either somebody on staff or someone like me that is helping them present documents. I mean, from what I've seen, 90% of the time, even the other side asks to use us if they don't have somebody, in
Yeah,
the
which is
courtroom.
a great thing for you. I mean, that's pure profit. That's amazing. That's the best when one hires you and then the other one needs you for something. Your work is obviously very important. And it sounds like you do mostly civil stuff, or do you do criminal as well?
Civil. Yeah, I've done or almost have done a few criminal things that end up, going away. But yeah, I do know some people that do
Yeah.
criminal, but it's a very smaller market because you're usually dealing with like huge white collar, crimes where it's like where the person that actually is being convicted or has a very large amount of money, where they can afford somebody to be in the courtroom
Right.
like that. But yeah, usually it's medical malpractice or business litigation, like complex business
Yeah.
litigation, personal injury, things like
So do
that.
you feel like because you've had so much exposure to these different trials that you're almost a jack of all trades now? Like you know a little bit about all of these different things?
I
Yeah,
definitely do.
I feel the same way. I mean, we don't always get to see all of the proceedings transpire. We may only get one or two depositions in that particular case, but oftentimes that's enough for definitely for vocabulary, but for you to learn a little bit, which I think is a really fun little bonus that I had no idea was going to be a part of the job. You know, I think that's a really cool asset.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, for sure. That's one aspect. I've always liked to argue as a person. I like having interesting
yeah,
conversations with people about their opinions. That's just how I've always enjoyed that. So for me to fall into this, and now with as much experience as I have, where attorneys actually, you know, will listen to me about actual arguments, that I can
yeah.
assist with, is what I really enjoy that aspect of it. Like feeling like I'm part of the team is probably one of my favorite parts of it because there are people that do this kind of work that they want something put up and they just put it up, which is fine. And I do that sometimes. I mean, I'm definitely not every case I'm sitting there strategizing
Right.
and whatnot, but like I really enjoy that part of it. But it's not always happening. But if I'm just a I'm pushing the buttons and pulling things up, that's fine. But the aspect that I really enjoy is kind of being part of the team and coming up with strategies and arguments and all that kind of stuff. It's really
Yeah,
fun
it
for
sounds
me.
like almost trade bystander, like you just ended up becoming sort of an
It
attorney in your
is.
own way, which is kind of cool. Um,
It is. It's a
yeah,
lot of fun.
definitely. So you've been doing this for 20 years. I mean, how big is your company? Are you just a one-man show? Are you obviously nationwide, I imagine, if not international, since everything's done virtually now, or not everything, but.
Yeah, yeah, just a couple of people. I was on my own completely until this newer company, but it's not a huge outfit, but we have connections. So we have like making the partnership that I have. We have connections to be able to bring other folks in, and I've trained a few people, and they've done some trials, and send them anywhere. I mean, even though when you send people in this occupation, when you send people to places with litigation, you just never know whether the actual trial is going
Right.
to go or not. So
True.
I've had multiple times when people have either flown in to go to a trial here, or I've sent them out to go to a trial in
Right.
Florida or wherever, and and all of a sudden you get. I just had a scenario where somebody literally had got on the plane, and if they would have gotten a call 10 minutes, like they flew, but they settled the
Right.
case 10 minutes after they got on the plane.
That's great.
But yeah, no, but we can help anywhere really, because of Zoom, because of traveling abilities, and the equipment has got the size of the equipment and the mobility of the equipment. I can carry. I have two carry-ons that I can carry 95% of what I need in almost any courtroom that I would
That's
ever be
awesome.
in. And a lot of the courtrooms now have
Right.
technology anyways, so I still bring everything just because I like to bring way too much stuff, just because that's how
Better to have
you do
it.
things. In this, exactly, there's no reason not to
Yeah.
if you can haul it. But anyways, that the yes, the techno the because I remember back when I started, we had our hard drives
Right.
were this big, and that was just one hard drive. So you carry a giant cart,
Yes.
wherever you went. Um, but it's just not. It's a lot easier to handle trials anywhere now,
Yeah,
for
and
sure.
I mean, I think that that's a fun part of it, that I like to travel. So, I would see that as a bonus. And for your colleague who it canceled, I almost think that's kind of cool too, because then they just get a free trip that they're just like, okay, well, now I'm here for 2 days. I mean, I don't know how you guys do it, but I was just talking to somebody last night, a reporter who went to Milan and they were in mediation the whole time. And he was there for like a week and he
Uh,
just had to put something on the record for like 20 minutes. And he ended up getting just a free week in Milan. I mean, it's pretty cool. Just the little
wow.
things that happen in our profession that are, oh, like I said, what I would consider a perk. I think that's a really cool opportunity, you
Oh,
know?
sure. Yeah, yeah. And they need us. They need us just in case they need us, right?
Yeah,
Like that's it's part of the. It is part of it. Like litigation is just so
yes,
unpredictable. You know, to have somebody on. Whether it's someone like yourself or someone like me, we
right.
need to be there. Like that's
Yes.
just how it
It takes a
is.
village.
And how many times they. Yeah, I mean, but they settle or they whatever
Yeah.
happens. The judge gets sick. I had a trial where I got there and the judge had
Oh, no.
COVID that morning,
Bummer. Bummer for him, not for you.
and she yeah, but she walked in the room and there was a entire gaggle of attorneys, and she's like, well, I wanted to tell everybody, but I was trying to figure out a way to get this going, but we couldn't get it going, so no trial. And then like 15 people are just like looking at each other like,
Yeah.
okay.
What do we do now? You take the day off.
It's
For
crazy.
sure.
You never know what you never know what you're gonna get in
Yeah,
trials for
exactly.
sure.
I mean, in the same in depositions too, I'm sure. So, do you predominantly do trial work, or do you just, I mean, are you at home also just preparing exhibits? Is that like the majority of it, or are you in depositions? What's your day to day?
The majority for me now has been
Yeah,
trials. So I do probably an average of one or two trials a month.
yeah,
Um, and then I was doing Zoom concierge work where I was presenting documents and helping with the Zoom calls and that sort of thing. But now I have somebody else doing that for me. So yeah, my and I like traveling. I like doing the trials a lot more than I mean I can do the Zoom stuff, but it's kind of it's a little mind
yeah.
numbing at
It's too
times,
simple,
to be
right?
honest.
Not creative enough. That makes sense for sure.
But yeah, I like the trials, and I like going. I like traveling, and I like going places.
Definitely.
So I like
Yeah.
meeting people and being in person, all
Yeah,
that kind of
I
thing.
think it's motivating to be around people. Do you have a lot of interaction with the court reporters?
Depends. So it depends on the. I mean, on Zoom calls, I do sit there and chat with the court reporter at the beginning, and just get to know them a little bit and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. Um, sometimes in the courtroom, they're talkative and that sort of thing, and sometimes they work for the court and they're just out on they're
Right.
doing their thing. It just depends on the
For
case,
sure. And the
really.
person. I mean, some people are very,
Yeah.
strictly this is business. And one of the things for me, because I'm a pretty chatty human, but when I'm in a deposition, it's challenging because I don't ever want to be perceived as choosing one side or the other. And I know that probably sounds ridiculous, but so of course, I'm cordial and friendly, but I don't want to chat too much to one or the other and kind of see that's just something that is, and I think that's probably different for you, or is it not? Do you have that at all?
Um, no, yeah, I mean, I don't really, especially on Zoom calls. I mean, I don't try to make any kind of, I'm not strategic. I'm not, I'm just kind of pulling
Right.
things up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But no, but like I said, I'll talk to court reporters and I'll try to help them out. If they need help with getting a
Yeah.
document or I'll shoot them an email. I'll sit there because I've had Zoom calls where I'm sure you've seen this, but where you have the attorney might have sent like 20 exhibits, let's say, but named them like by
Yeah.
the Bates number, and
Yeah.
they weren't actually
Like a
named
Google
exhibits,
password.
and then they create these exhibits as yeah, so they're creating these exhibits as they're going through, and they're naming them
Yeah.
as they're going through. So I'll sit there and take notes of like, you know, WA 2372 through whatever is Exhibit 2, and then I'll mark them all down, and then I'll change the name of the actual PDF, and then I'll send it to the court reporter and things like that. And I know they really appreciate that because that sometimes sometimes I'm sure people don't do that. So I'm sure it's very
Yeah.
convenient for
I
them,
actually just had a,
so they don't have to go
oh,
back
I'm
and
sorry,
figure
I
it
didn't mean
out.
to cut you off. No,
Oh,
I
go
was
ahead.
just gonna say I just had an experience like that where we had some exhibit drama and we had to actually cancel reschedule the deposition because we couldn't get the exhibit situation handled. And, you know, it, yeah, it
Wow.
was, it happens, sometimes the attorneys just couldn't deliver it. The other, trying to deliver it, the other attorney couldn't download it. It was a whole thing. So they
Oh,
just, wanted to go about it a different way. And so such is life. But it's really nice to have somebody whose expertise is in that, which doesn't feel like, if I'm honest, it really has anything to do with graphic design. So is that just something that you have developed over time and just because you're tech savvy?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I handle a lot of exhibit. I mean, I handle a lot of PDFs. I handle a lot of just conversions, like converting things to other things and converting Excel spreadsheets to
Right.
PDFs and making things accessible to the software that I use in the courtroom. You know, just learning how to handle
Yeah.
files. I mean, that's definitely something I've learned, and I honestly wouldn't say I'm a like a tech. You know, they call us trial techs. A lot of people do, and I know my technology. I know my software very well. I know visual programs. I know PowerPoint and that sort of thing. But I'm not like writing
Right.
code. I'm not fixing people's computers generally. I'm not a tech guy. I'm a presentation,
Yeah.
guy who knows technology, but
Yes.
not, you know what I mean. So,
So are you
uh,
essentially then, when they say like, bring up exhibit one or whatever, that's entirely your role. The attorneys are not having, because I don't work in trial. I work in deposition. So I have very limited trial, experience. But so I imagine then you are just strictly there to do all of that sort of stuff for them and they don't have to do anything.
correct. So we have depends on the trial, but we'll bring in all the technology that's needed. But sometimes it's already built into the
Right.
courtrooms, so they'll have a projector, they'll have big screens, they'll have all that. But if they don't, then we'll do that. We'll set up a projector, we'll set up a screen, we'll set up multiple monitors, and even set up if the other side wants to plug into stuff, we'll set them a switch, and so we set up the entire courtroom, and then yeah, so we'll send the entire court time and pull up documents, highlight and call things out while the witness is on the stand, possible impeachment with video from
Yeah.
depositions. Making clips. Sometimes you have video playbacks where you have to actually edit it entirely down to make one video that each side agrees is ready to play, and I'll be the one to do that. I'll edit the whole thing. I'll have that all on my computer and I present it onto a screen. So yeah, all those
So do
things.
you work pretty closely with videographers then? Or do you do that as well?
I personally don't do videography, but we have people that can handle that. That
Okay.
if needed. But yeah, I wouldn't call us a videography company per se, but but we can help with videography for depositions. Um, but yeah, I mean, I know how to handle video. I know how to take what's given. I can convert video. If it's improperly converted, I know how to synchronize video if it needs synchronized.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. Just because I mean, these are the things again, going back to what we were talking about before with the documents, being able to handle documents and handle these things because these are what we're given. Same thing with video. So like I know how to edit video with lots of different editing programs and how to convert video if it needs converted. All the things that I can do
Right.
because I have to figure
Yeah.
it out. Right. There's no one there but me that knows what the hell they're doing with
Right, right.
MP4.
Which, is news to me because I always thought that the videographer was there to present. And I know some videographers do trial presentation.
Some
But so
do.
this sounds like
Some
you're kind
do.
of an all-in-one sort of, not just the video of whatever it might be, but any kind of exhibit. I mean, that's a really cool, business to have and skill to offer. I'm sure it's as you've mentioned, you're very busy, so that's great. And if they can just have one person to do it
Yeah.
all, that makes much more sense, than having to have the videographer come in and all of that stuff. And it sounds, because I don't do any of child presentation, it sounds like it would be simple, but I have a feeling there's a lot of moving parts at one time. Is that true?
Yeah, and it's kind of high pressure, so you're kind of on the spot,
Yeah.
right? You're the like if anything goes wrong, which like it can and
Yeah.
sometimes does. But yeah, so like it's very high pressure in terms of just being able to move quickly. So like if they say exhibit so and so, page so and there's an issue, like everybody's looking at you. The attorney's looking at you. The judge is looking at you. The jury's looking
Yeah.
at you. And if you can't do it, then the whole courtroom
Right.
stops, and nobody wants
Agreed.
that.
Yes. I tell you, I
So yes, I guess in terms of and the thing is, I've had occasion, in the past, probably, I don't know, whatever. I've had occasion where I brought somebody in, very last minute because I had to have somebody and I didn't have anybody. This was many years ago, but and I'm like, well, they're tech savvy, I think they can handle the technology setup and they can pull stuff up. And, they get in front of those lights. It's like a
yes.
deer in the headlights. I mean, like if you can't handle pressure, it's definitely not a job you want,
Sure.
to be honest. But people that are good with kind of high pressure
Yeah.
situations, um, I think that's important in this line of work because they call, at least in my occupation, they're the people that do it call it the hot
Yeah.
seat. Um, just because that's what it is. Like you're on, like that's why we have two computers, we have two speakers, we have two monitors, we have two
Yeah.
of everything in case the other thing
For sure.
fails, right? So you got to be ready for anything, and just be on top of it.
Yeah.
Be able to communicate with attorneys really quickly and
Right.
that sort of thing.
So what led to Tilt? How did you end up starting this new company after 20 years in the industry?
Um, Again, it was more just to kind of build a little bit. I like I said, I've been on my own or was on my own for 8 years or so, 8.5 years, and just trying to make it a little bigger, essentially, expanding my reach a little more nationally and expanding, like having more possible subcontractors that I use, or that sort of thing. Just kind of trying to grow a little bit, and that's pretty much it. It's nothing real big. I mean, it's not like I'm joining a giant conglomerate or anything. It's just trying to grow a little bit at a time, and this was just one way I
No,
wanted
that's
to do it.
great. That's the
So
Cinderella story, right? I mean, you're starting something on your own, and I think people are much more appreciative of that now than maybe 50 years ago. I think,
I agree with
yeah,
that. Well, and in this industry and probably others, um, I've always, when I left my old company, my goal, one of my goals, and it really worked out, was to basically like meet people, like meet more people that do what
okay,
I do, and not treat them as competition, but treat it almost as an
yeah,
opportunity, right? Like where the more people I know in my community of people that do it, like because I know that I get overbooked, for trials. Trials are a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, sometimes a couple
yeah,
months long, and if I'm still getting calls to do trials and I can't do them, I don't want to just be like, yeah,
right,
I can't.
yes,
You know what I mean? Like, so like, but making connections with other people that do what I do, and I've done that a lot, in the last 10 years, where I've subcontracted for people. I've had a lot of people subcontract for me that I trust, and just kind of build
yeah,
it that way, because I think it's a small market. There's not a lot of people that do this
yeah,
kind of work, and I think it's an important thing, and it really worked out
yeah.
a
I
lot
mean, clearly,
for
yeah.
me. Doing it that way, I think really was really a good
I
way to
couldn't
go.
agree more. And I think that's really serendipitous that you mentioned that because I don't know how much you know about the actual nuances in the court reporter profession specifically, but there is a lot of that sort of, treating people like competition when you could actually be embracing them. And that's what STAR is kind of trying to do, is really bring people together and work together, because there is so much work out there. And so it's a weird phenomenon when people start to get, gatekeeping and stuff, but it's like, obviously you have a lot more to gain if you work together than if you start, trying to hoard things or whatever. And I think it's obviously, I suppose maybe not in every single industry, but in ours, there's just so much work. It just makes sense to be cooperative and to lean on your peers for help. And it sounds like it's working out remarkably for you.
Yeah, it's definitely been the best thing I've done. And just, I feel like I like to be a friendly person as well. So like I don't want to go into a courtroom and see a tech on the other side and be like, oh, you know, I want to steal his client, or I want to, I'd love to, compete with him to get more business. Like, eh, it just doesn't sound like
Yeah,
fun to me.
definitely not. No, for sure.
I'd rather just sit there and chat with him and have a friendly relationship, and and then if something comes up for me, that I can't handle, that I can give
Yeah,
it to him, and vice
exactly.
versa. I think that's a really great way to do
Could
business, to
not
be
agree
honest.
more. We say it all the time. We are stronger together. I I have learned
Yeah.
so much in just our short half hour here today. I had no real even grasp on what it was that you guys do, and it's been amazing to learn how savvy you are in the courtroom and how important your role is definitely to attorneys. Um, is there anything that you would like people to know or listeners to know about this journey and how they could maybe get into it?
Um, I mean, you can always reach out to me, but I, you know, like I said, I think it's the best part about doing my job, and I think you know is just being in the moment and kind of living in the moment in trials, is the most fun part. But like I said, if if anybody wants to reach out and talk to me about it directly, I'd be happy to
Yeah.
do so. Or even if they have a client that they think it might help, because I know a lot of court reporters have certain clients that they work for all the time, right? And it's, they keep coming back to them, and they might have, they might say, oh, that'd be really nice for them, for them to have somebody like, like Josh to help them. I'd be happy to help them.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a connection right then and there. And hopefully, you will help some people out. What is it? What is your website? Is it tilt.com or what is it?
Yeah, it's
Okay,
tiltlitservices.com.
wonderful. Well, we'll make sure to include that so that, yeah, if anybody has a need, they can definitely reach out to you. I really appreciate you taking the time to educate us on your expertise in your field and what you do. And who knows, maybe in the future when I'm randomly on a trial, you'll be there. That would be awesome.
That'd be great. And if you want to reach out to me directly by email, it's the Josh H at same Tilt Lit
Tilt Lit
Services.
Services. Perfect. And lit is short for litigation. I'm sure everybody knows, but just in case they don't, it might help you remember.
Correct.
Well, thank you so much, Josh. I really do appreciate you taking the time today. And I've had a good time learning, and I hope that our viewers have too.
Okay.
Yeah, well, have a
Thank you.
great day, everybody. We will see you here next time.